Imagine this. You've been given a divine message, a stunning vision of the heavens, but you're just too afraid to tell anyone. For decades, a 12th century nun named Hildegard von Bingen kept one of history's most extraordinary secrets completely locked away. We're about to dive into the incredible story of her fear, her faith, and the divine command that she just couldn't ignore any longer. So that quote, that's the voice Hildegard was hearing from the heavens. And wow, does it just nail her whole problem? See, she wasn't some famous scholar or a theologian. In the 12th century, women's voices weren't exactly front and center, you know? She saw herself as simple, uneducated. And this feeling, this deep-seated timidity, would become the central battle of her entire life. To really get a grip on how huge this command was, we gotta rewind the clock a bit and understand the secret she'd been carrying for pretty much her whole life. And look, we're not talking about some one-off thing, like a quick flash of insight. For Hildegard, these visions were a constant. They were a defining feature of her existence, a hidden reality she was living with day in and day out. I mean, the timeline here is just staggering. Can you imagine? From the age of 5, she was seeing what she called the shade of the living light. But she kept it almost totally to herself. For nearly 40 years, she lived in what she called a quiet silence, all because of fear and humility. But keeping this secret, it took a serious toll on her, a physical one. Hildegard truly believed that her refusal to speak up was making her sick, that she was being pressed down by the scourge of God. Her inner conflict was literally making her body fall apart. But then, something had to give, right? And it did. A huge turning point was on the horizon, a moment where her silence just wasn't an option anymore. The year is 1141. Hildegard is 42 years old, and this is when the heavens basically forced her hand in a way she could no longer ignore. This is how she describes what happened next. It wasn't some gentle whisper. It was an overwhelming, fiery light pouring into her mind. And I love this part. It was like a flame that didn't burn you, but instead it lit you up from the inside. This was the divine push she needed. And with that burning light came this command. No ambiguity, just a straight-up order. And notice how the voice gets right to the heart of her fears. It calls her a weak person, ashes of ashes, but then completely overrides it. The message couldn't be clearer. Speak. And write. Okay, so the floodgates are open. What's the very first thing she's commanded to write down? Well, it's a big one. A stunningly complex vision, like a whole symbolic landscape of divine truth. Just look at this. This is what she saw. A massive, iron-colored mountain with this figure at the top so incredibly bright she couldn't even look right at them. And this wasn't just a pretty picture, it was a theological message, totally encoded in symbols. All right, let's break this incredible image down piece by piece. You've got the mountain, you've got the brilliant figure on top, then there's a young girl at the bottom, all these sparkling rays of light, and stars filled with the heads of people. Every single element is a piece of a much larger puzzle. And here's the really cool part. Hildegard didn't have to sit there and try to figure it all out like some big cosmic riddle. Nope. Along with the vision, that heavenly voice gave her a detailed explanation for every single symbol she saw. So let's do what that heavenly voice did for her. Let's unlock the meaning behind these powerful symbols. Okay, first symbol, that huge iron-colored mountain right in the middle of everything. What's that all about? So the voice tells her, that mountain, that's the eternal reign of God. It's iron-colored because it represents strength and stability, something permanent that can't be changed or weakened. The setting itself is a massive statement about divine power. It's not going anywhere. All right, next up, what about that person sitting on the mountain? The one so bright she literally couldn't even look at them. Well, that blinding light? That's pure divine authority and judgment. It represents the reign of blessedness, the source of all divine commands, the ultimate power that's calling all the shots. And finally, let's zoom in on that little figure down at the bottom, the young girl in the simple, pale tunic. That girl, the voice explains, is humility. Her place at the foot of the mountain of God's power, while it shows us where humanity is supposed to stand. The voice says that those who are poor in spirit, those who are humble, they don't act for themselves, they act for God. So there you have it. After decades of sickness and silence, Hildegard finally steps into her new role. She finally embraces her purpose. And she is crystal clear about this in her own words. She's not an author making up cool stories. She's basically saying, don't credit me, I'm just the messenger here. I'm just writing down exactly what I saw and heard. And get this, here's the amazing payoff to her whole struggle. The moment she finally obeyed and started to write, her mysterious illnesses, gone. Just vanished. Accepting her mission brought her physical healing. And she went on to spend the next decade creating her masterpiece, Scivias, or Know the Ways, a book of theology and cosmology that is still absolutely astonishing today. Hildegard's story leaves you with this one big question, right? Her fear, her self-doubt, almost silenced one of the most unique voices of the entire Middle Ages. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What profound truths or brilliant ideas are still locked away right now, simply because someone, somewhere, is too afraid to speak?